music fans. Welcome to Full Record Jacket with Phil and Ben. And Ben's in the spotlight for this because it's what we've been listening to show and tell time, and I've got nothing to show. So Ben's got lots of vinyl sleeves to put on the screen for your perusal. Ben, what have you got?
Well, this week, Philip, I've mainly been listening to. I've actually put the basket down. Well, it's not basket; it's a thingy with my vinyls in down here. Let me lean over. And
You just spent 5 minutes preparing to make sure you had them all to hand, and now
I know. And
you
then
can't actually.
I've moved my table, and it's kind of like out of reach slightly. So just pad for time, Phil.
It just makes it more interesting and exciting as to what's going to be pulled out of there. It just increases the drama, really.
It doesn't. Trust me. Oh God, there's some Tom Jones.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be something I've never heard of, because with your vinyl, it usually is.
No. I listened to. Do you remember in one of the last shows I had this in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to this very poppy sort of. I almost called it indie pop. In a way.
Am I right to point out the fact that that guy on the front cover is not the artist?
That is not the artist. No, the artist is called E.J. Maras. Maras.
He sounds He sounds younger than that, because.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't know
that
why.
guy. It's not that guy.
You sent me this album, and I had a quick stream of it. And
Yeah,
looking at that front cover, I kind of expected him to be doing. I don't know why I didn't realise that guy on the front cover was obviously just some photo that they picked, some old photo for arty reasons. And I would
say it's one of those albums where the cover doesn't represent what's on the record.
No, it doesn't in any way, because I was expecting it to be some kind of cross between C6 Steve and something else.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be some guy playing blues in a barn.
That's kind of what I thought as well.
With an acoustic guitar and maybe somebody playing an accordion behind him or something.
So I would say would you say slightly indie pop, Euro indie pop?
I guess, yeah, it's a bit electronic as well, isn't it? So,
yes, there's a bit of that in there. It's a nice album, to be honest.
The bits I heard were quite mellow.
Yeah. It was, mellow, and there's a few upbeat bits in it, but that was a good album.
So who is that again? Remind us.
EJ. I'll tell you what. I'll show you his name, and then just in case I can't pronounce it right, but I can't even show it you right. There he is.
EJ Marias.
Yeah. So I've been listening to that. That was a good listen.
I don't know how to pronounce that. We probably pronounced that about as well as Tony Blackburn pronounced Duran Duran, the 80s band with Simon Le Bon and the rest when they had their first hit. One of Britain's most famous DJs didn't know who they were and announced them as that. Yeah.
I'm really poorly organised. My albums keep. Well, next up, Phil, is an album you will know, and it's.
Oh yeah, everything's turned out hunky dory.
Hunky dory by David Bowie. Now, this took me a couple of listens to really get into it. I found it quite a difficult album at first.
It's quirky, isn't it? It's a quirky album.
Yeah. It's obviously got some like the big tracks on it, like Changes, Oh You Pretty Things, Life on Mars.
It has one or two kooks on it, and
it does have the kooks on it. Yes, yeah.
And it also has, that's the one with the song for Bob Dylan as well, I think. Am I right?
Track 3 on side 2. Yeah. So limited edition picture disc. Like I said, it took me a couple of listens to get into it, but God, this is really unprofessional. I'm leaning out of shot, but and then what else is in my little stack of joy? And it's on wheels and it's running away from me. This is going all to pot.
It's very Phil and Ben. It's Phil and Ben production values. People expect nothing less.
Oh well, yeah, they won't get in there. No, I haven't opened this yet, but I did listen to it on Spotify. This is Mike Ponzer's A Real Good Kid album.
Now, is he called Mike Posner? Is he P-O-S-N?
Posner, yes.
P-O-S-N-E-R.
Yeah.
So the album's not a POS.
No. And I bought it mainly at first because I quite like the cover.
It does look quite groovy. Yeah, I do quite like that design.
And I thought, oh, I've stumbled on to an artist that nobody's heard of, and it turns out that everybody's heard of him, and he's quite a big artist. But I was actually quite surprised. I think I shared it to you, and you said, "Oh, he sounds a little bit down," but it's got some nice.
No,
I know I use the word
I
a
read the
lot.
synopsis. Well, I read the synopsis of the album, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'm not knocking it, but I'm not sure whether I was quite in the mood. It sounded pretty like it could be a bit depressing, but
No,
not that that's a bad thing. Not I'm saying that's a bad
no.
thing.
It was a good album. To be fair, it's got some good tales in the lyrics. There's a few bits where he gets a bit angry,
Yeah.
and even comes with a warning. Look, oh, because he does use the F-bomb a few times.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I know. And anyway, next up on my list is a little bit of guitar jazz.
Now I found that you sent me that link to that, and I streamed a very small bit of it, and it sounded pretty interesting. It sounded like experimental jazz on an acoustic guitar. Would it be right to say that?
Luis Lopez's Love Song album. Yeah, I put it on. Was it Sunday? One day at some point during the week when it was raining, and it was quite nice having the rain falling down, and it's gentle. You kind of expecting it to go somewhere bigger, and it never really does. But I don't know. I'm not one normally for arty farty stuff, yeah, but I actually quite enjoyed. It's a miles away from what I would normally listen to. I do like jazz, not all jazz, but a lot of jazz. But I actually found it's a delicate listen.
Okay,
That's the best way I can put it. But it's a good album. Luis Lopez Love Song. So from 2018, I think. And then I have got one more, but I'll do that on another one because I'm not chasing that cart around. But obviously, I went to see him the other week, and he seems to be like a second cousin to us because we talk about him quite a lot.
He keeps popping up, doesn't he? Ryan Adams on this show.
Ryan Adams. So I have been listening to his cover of Morning Glory.
Right, okay. His extensive cover version. I've not heard any of that. I mean, has he re-recorded has he covered his own cover of Wonderwall again?
He has, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's covered the cover of Wonderwall, but this is his album, I think we've mentioned it before. He's had his troubles as young Mr. Adams in recent times, so he's not actually signed to any sort of major label. So this is released on his own Paxam.
Well, I would imagine they don't have enough space in their release schedule for all the records he keeps making.
But this is I've listened to it. I've listened to the first disc 3 or 4 times. A really good album. There's upbeat bits in it. It's obviously about the album's called Chris, and I take it that's Chris there, who was his brother who passed away a couple of years ago.
Right, yeah, okay. I see. I didn't know why it was called that. I heard he'd done this album called Chris. I just thought it was just a quirky title for an album, but I didn't realise that.
But it's a really, really good album. The production on it's really good. It's, like we said before, Ryan Adams is prolific in his.
He's prolific, and he has done a lot of quality stuff. But he's done so much stuff. I've not really been able to keep up with everything he's done. I mean, I like quite a lot of his early records are good. I've not been in touch with a lot of his recent stuff, although of course I did do quite a detailed listen to his Springsteen cover album.
Oh, Nebraska.
We talked about.
I say that like in shock, but we have spoken about that.
We did do a show about that one. Yeah,
it was so long ago, Phil.
We didn't do a show about his Bob Dylan "Blood on the Tracks" cover album.
No, we'll have to do that.
Maybe we'll do that at some point, but he'll probably have covered everything else by that point.
Most of the charts, I would have thought by that point. Hopefully, nothing by. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an awful band that I don't like.
Well, I'm just trying to think of someone who's been very prolific, and he'll probably end up covering everything Neil Young's ever done, and covered every
Bob Dylan
album, including Down in the Groove and Knocked Out Loaded, and there'll be nothing left for him to cover.
There won't be. They'll run out of songs, and then finally, I haven't listened to it yet, but I wanted to show it you because it's got a cool. And I think these are Swedish. They're called the 13 Women. No, they're called the Rambling Wheels. And
Okay.
this album's called The 13 Women of Ill Repute. But look at that album cover. That's so cool.
That's pretty rock and roll, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they're Swedish. I could be wrong, but this is their 2014 album.
Kind of like the original British sleeve for Hendrix Electric Ladyland, except they've got clothes on this time.
Yeah, they have got clothes on. And no flat pack furniture in the background either.
No.
So this will be being listened to. Does that make sense? This will be being listened to.
Yeah.
This week. This will be being listened to this week.
You could just say I'll be listening.
All
to this
right.
this week.
Well, I didn't go down that route, did I? I went down the more complicated, nonsensical version.
Is it the best thing to come out of Sweden since the Cardigans?
No, because the best thing to come out of Sweden since the Cardigans is obviously Victor Gyökeres. So,
okay, I don't know who Victor Gyökeres is. Am I missing something big?
He plays centre forward for Coventry City.
Okay, right, okay, yeah.
No,
I thought it was an artist.
The music-wise, yeah, possibly, yeah, the Cardigans.
I thought it was going to be another of your obscure LPs, but no.
What was the band who wore the black and white suits, like the black suits, white ties? Tick Boom.
The Hives. The Hives.
Is it the Hives?
They were Swedish. They were a Swedish punk.
Yeah.
Kind of band.
Yeah. So them. It wasn't Roxette from Sweden.
I think they were Swedish as well. Yeah.
She's no longer with us, is she? The lead.
No.
I can't remember what her name was.
She's passed on, sadly.
Yeah. The Hives. Whatever happened to the Hives?
I don't know. They were your new favourite band at one time. They
Yes.
they were everybody's new favourite band.
Yeah. It took me a little while to get the album title in that one, but I think I've got that album actually.
I've got it somewhere. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I've got it as well. Maybe we should put some not wanted posters up, but when people go missing, you get it on milk cartons. We should get that going for the Hives.
Now that album came out.
Was it about 2002?
It was early 2000s. It was around about the same time as the Strokes' first
debut album. Yeah.
It was around then. Now I think that your new favourite band was actually a compilation of stuff that they'd done up to that point. It wasn't a proper debut album in the sense of it being, but it was effectively their debut album because no one had hardly heard of them before. I wonder whether we should put that up against the Strokes' debut album and do one of our head-to-heads. I don't know.
There's only going to be one winner, though, isn't there?
Probably. I'm thinking I'm having this difficulty remembering most of the Hives songs. I think it will probably flood back to me when I put it on, but I haven't listened to it.
I can only remember the one, and I remember I did listen to that album a lot. Not a lot. But there's a lot of albums around that time that I sort of bought and then never really listened to, like The Thrills, In the City, or whatever. Didn't really get into that. Kings of Leon debut album. Brilliant album.
Yeah,
Kings of Leon debut versus the Strokes debut. That is a duel.
That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? And because they're both, one from the South and one from New York, and similar length album.
It'll be like the Civil War all over again.
It will be. We'll do the Strokes against Kings of Leon. Okay, we'll do that.
Imagine that show could be what could finally split America.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah. But I think that'd be a good battle off. The Hives, I'm not. They're not. They're not really
I agree. Let's take the Strokes and the Kings of Leon. Let's put those two sort of big leaguers up against each other.
And the other thing I've been listening to is Noel Gallagher's new track. Obviously came out this week or last week, back end of last week.
Now that's been played on.
That's
been on the radio a few weeks, hasn't it?
I think it got released last Monday.
When was it first played on the radio? Because wasn't it?
It was played on Zoe Ball, wasn't it, on Radio 2?
Okay, I've heard it on Radio 2. That's the BBC for anyone who's not in the UK. It sounded quite Oasis-like.
Yeah, there's the chorus bit to it does sound very much. I don't know if you remember the song he did, "The Ballad of the Mighty Eye." if you listen to that and then listen to his new track, the chorus bit, because I think he sings "I Will Find You" and he sings it in both songs, very, very similar. But then again, he's done that before because, do you know what I mean? Very similar in guitar to Wonderwall. So there's a lot of, similarities with it. So
he's covered himself.
Another good track. Yes, he has covered himself. And in Glory, because the 4 tracks he's released have been, I've ordered the deluxe edition of the new album. Okay. But you got Easy Now, Pretty Boy. The Robert Smith version, remix of Pretty Boy, is really, really good. So you wouldn't have put really Noel Gallagher and Robert Smith and The Cure together, but it's a really, really good version, what he's done. But they're all slightly different. And the, what was the third one? Oh, the really slow one that he did. I can't remember. It's gone from my mind. But also another great track. So I'm really looking forward to that album coming out. I think it comes out 6th or 7th of June, as far as I'm aware. I'm trying to pad for time while I find what that Noel Gallagher track was called, so I don't look like a complete buffoon.
What's it called? It's called Council Skies or something.
That's the new track, is Council Skies.
Okay. Yeah. The other one is the one that you think he's...
The other one, and I should know because there he is. Look at him with his little sunglasses on.
So Robert Smith of The Cure...
Dead to the World.
Dead to the World. So Robert Smith of The Cure has remixed a Noel Gallagher track.
Yeah, Pretty Boy.
Did he do that? Did he do that on one of his in-between days?
Ooh. I like the way he did that. I like the way he did that.
Just sort of chuck one in. There's no cure for my puns, is there?
Oh, there's no. Well, there is.
It
means taking you out to the paddock with a sawn off. It's going to happen, Phil. We might as well just cut out the middleman and get down to it. But no, I'm looking forward to that album. I'm sort of, and luckily I've managed to fill the gap because there's about a week gap. I've ordered the new Matchbox 20 album.
Oh, you just love the Matchbox 20.
I do. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them that I like, because they're a very I don't know. I just like them. But,
I know
like Rob Thomas as a songwriter.
You see, I don't know enough of their stuff to really have a firm opinion on the band. I think Rob Thomas clearly can perform well. I mean, of course, the most famous song on which he sings is the one where he guests for Carlos Santana.
Well, he actually wrote the song because
he wrote the song as well. Yeah. Okay.
He wrote the song, and then I think Carlos Santana. Rob Thomas wanted somebody else to sing it. And then Carlos Santana heard his version and was like, no, I want you to.
Okay, this is Smooth, of course, which has been all over the radio, all over the world. At one time, you couldn't escape it. I hadn't heard it in a while. You were talking about Rob Thomas the other week, and I watched the video of Smooth, and it's a good song, it's groovy. But also, he's had quite a tough life, hasn't he, Rob Thomas?
He's virtually homeless. His mother was a alcoholic, died quite young. He lived the life of a hedonistic homeless person, I think he says, where he sort of travelled around with a keyboard and a guitar.
So he's had the tough background that sometimes makes a great artist. But I can't comment too much on all their music because I haven't heard a lot of it. Because I know
he's one of these rock stars as well that you can actually like him as a person. There's some rock stars you think, God, if I met you, you'd be an absolute sponge. But it just genuinely seems like a very, it might be a bit MOR, American rock. And they have gone slightly poppy with, what I can gather. But I think everybody's going, I would say they almost sound, the beat to it is almost quite Future Islandsy.
Okay. Yeah, they are one of these bands who've been quite mainstream, so some people get a little bit snobby and snoozy about them, But
I think even they're aware of that as well, because it's down here somewhere, but their best of is actually called Exile on Mainstream.
That's right.
Yeah. So they're actually quite aware of their own sort of, if only wet were.
Yeah.
The world would be a better place, wouldn't it? So take note, Marty Pellow. He's not even in them anymore, is he, Marty Pellow?
Is that right? They've changed the vocalist, yeah.
Yeah, I think Marty Pellow's concentrating on his solo stuff, and the lead singer of Wet. Don't ask me how I know this, but I do. Used to be in not Hearsay, but remember Liberty X?
Okay, I can't believe we're discussing this,
I know,
but
I know, but
that's
yeah.
a
So
weird one because I know some heavy rock bands have changed the singer. I mean, obviously, famously, AC/DC did that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
some other rock bands have done that. But with those bands and with the rock fans, it's not just the singer that's the essence of the band because the other musicians are very important. You know, particularly obviously lead guitarists are very celebrated, and then obviously there's drummers as well, and some of these bands, you know, I mean, Metallica, isn't it the drummer who was the founder of the band, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
So you could say, yeah, the singer can be changed. I think Iron Maiden, they changed their singer for a while, then he came back. I don't, you know, but with these pop groups like Wet Wet Wet, when the singer has been so much more kind of marketed as a pop star, it seems very odd that they changed the singer in a band like that, that kind of group. I just find it kind of
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. I mean, obviously Queen have done it, but they had no option really.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, with Marty Pello, I can't believe we're discussing Wet Wet Wet.
I can't believe that. No, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of an equivalent pop
if you
group.
go to anybody who grew up in the in the 80s or was a certain age in the 80s and went, can you name the other three members of Wet Wet
Well,
Wet who
exactly.
are
This is
Marty
it.
Pello?
This is it.
You know, so in a way, even though those three remaining men, and no disrespect to them as musicians or anything, but you're not really going to watch the original.
Well, this is the strange thing. I mean, you see, can you imagine if you change one of the members of the Beatles? Okay, now,
well, they did.
All
they got rid of
four.
Ringo, didn't they? And brought in the other drummer while he had his tonsils out.
Yeah, yeah, okay, but it's.
I know what you mean, though.
But people would have said, even though the three left were superstars and everybody knew their names and they all had an identity, people would still have said it's not the Beatles without John Lennon, or it's not the Beatles without Paul McCartney, right? Or it's not the same without George Harrison. And yet, in a band where only one person is really famous, you're going to take that one person out and then say it's the same band. That's kind of odd to me.
It is to me as well, because even though it is still the original sort of backing, the band as it were, you're not going to see them, are you? If you're a Wet 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 fan, you're going because you want to. It's Marty Pello singing them songs.
It would be like Wham, Andrew Ridgeley saying, well, I'm going to carry on as Wham, but I'm not going to have George Michael. I'm going to have someone else singing. I mean, it's just not, in that kind of music, it's just not, it doesn't kind of work. Why are we even discussing this?
I don't know. I have no idea. But it's we've gone down a wormhole of,
we have.
What will, Andrew Ridgeley wouldn't go, do you know what? Let's get rid of George Michael and I'm going to bring in Noel Edmonds. It's just not going to work, is it?
Probably not.
Unless you want to see Noel Edmonds sing, I suppose. But it's it's an odd one. Who would have thought that a discussion that started off so well on vinyl records would then wet and the trials and tribulations to why anybody would want to see them live?
I can't believe we got onto wet. Mind you, on the outtake edition of this show, which was only 4 minutes long because your battery ran out. We got onto Jim Reeves, and how the heck we managed to do that, I don't know. But
I'll tell you another band, actually. Well, before you get onto your Jim Reeves point, E17. They're still going, and they haven't got any original members of the band left. So you're not going to see E17. You're basically going to see a covers band, aren't you?
It's a brand. It's a band turned into a brand. But this has happened. Yeah. This has happened, of course, with some of the American groups. I say it's probably British groups as well, but I'm thinking of the big names from the past, like the Drifters.
Yeah.
And I think there was a case where there were more than one group going around calling themselves the Drifters, and some of them, and other groups like that. I'm trying to think of other vocal groups and R&B groups that have done that.
The Sugar Babes.
But yeah, quite often somebody owns the rights to the name. This happened with Bucks Fizz, didn't it, as well? The British pop group. And I'm sure there's many others where it's happened, but there are
Sugar
bands.
Babes, as I just said, I think they ended up when they disbanded. I mean, they've reformed now with the three original members, But when they finished, I don't think any of the original members were left. So, you know, who are you actually going to see? Check the packaging, people. Could be going to see Jim Reeves.
Exactly. So, shall we end this one here? We've been talking for 25 minutes.
I know, because if we don't end it here, you're going to end up talking about Jim Reeves, and then we're all going to be...
How did we get onto that? Oh, I do remember how we got onto that, but let's not go there. Let's just say thanks for watching Ben's vinyl. This is what Ben has been buying. Join us for another episode of Full Record Jacket, in which we'll talk about something completely different. But for now...
Not wet.
No. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.